the keyboard down, get the Mac out. Our up and comers really think that me, niggas really think a handle can handle me. JPEGMAFIA has released his new album, All My Heroes Are Cornballs, not long after his Veteran album. You all know I enjoy Veteran. It ended up in my top list of 2018. However, one of my issues with Veteran was how much more abrasive it was. And the thing about Veteran that I enjoyed more than the production was JPEG sass, his ability to poke his head in the door of satire or seriousness at a moment's notice. If there's a phrase I'd use to most accurately describe his music, it'd be genre defiant. And a lot of the time when I listen to his music and his verses, his music ends up mirroring what I would get from a comedy special. Sure, we're there to laugh at the jokes and everything like that, but there is a certain amount of seriousness to joking. There is a bit of truth rooted in every joke that you might hear. And based off the massive amount of content that he uses in this project, I could say if someone could go and travel to the year 2100 and get a pretty decent representation of what the year 2019 has to offer. The instrumental choices here, while much more melodic than his previous, aren't necessarily trendy, and they've all pretty much feature a pretty low BPM. Pretty regularly on Veteran, we peer into 140, 150, 160, 170 BPM, whereas on this project, we stay pretty consistent around 110 to 120. Much more smooth, consistent listen than the explosive material that we got on Veteran. Kenan vs. Kel begins very smooth, timid, and somewhat dainty as he, in a contemplative and very thoughtful fashion, details his plans for the future in music. This organized and somewhat structured thought process and instrumental give way to a much more violent, unstable view that isn't nearly as agreeable over an alarming, warning-like industrial and punk rock mix. What seems to be some decent forethought into his first verse collapses under the weight of this hellhound-like character that seems to keep interrupting Peggy's intentions, and this is an interruption that I notice again on the track Jesus Forgive Me, I'm a Thot. Reversing through the track, it seems as if Peggy's trying to find some sort of guidance or some kind of leading light, in this character that keeps interrupting him is what's trying to bring him back in or break out of his shell. His auto-tuned I can't feel my face, oh God, to me imply the struggle of finding one's identity, as to say he's maneuvering through life with a mask, as he's wrestling with which mask to wear. They're later confirmed on tracks like Free the Frail, where he raps, I feel afraid this easy A, I'm feeling framed, I wear a mask, I see the banes. And again on the track Rap Grow Old and No Child Left Behind, he raps, some people need a hero, my niggas need a bane. The entirety of Jesus Forgive Me, I'm a Thot seems somewhat strangled by this duty he seems to have toward the normalization of humanity. Despite wanting to normalize humanity, different views and different perspectives, this album thematically and sonically still maintains a very tight-knit relationship with internet culture, which is why on the next track we get the beautiful beta male strategies where he fires back at anonymous internet users and seems to question the authenticity of rappers with power or influence and the beta males who gave it to them. It's really a testament to having your own mind so you don't get outraged over rappers' opinions who essentially mean nothing. And it's such a hazy instrumental but still maintains a very smooth texture. And JPEGMAFIA type beat actually remind me of some Atari Teenage Riot. The funny thing about that is, while I was doing my whole deep dive with Death Grips, I actually found that Atari Teenage Riot was one of their bigger influences. And something ATR and JPEGMAFIA have in common is how resourceful they both are. But in the context of this album, in the context of this song, a track like JPEG Type Beat much more closely resembles something off of their Reset album in 2015, Death Machine more specifically. You go through the track listing and a lot of the songs off of something like Reset in 2015 from Atari Teenage Riot, you'll see despite how loud a lot of the instrumentals are, they still maintain a rhythm. And when comparing it to JPEG Type Beat, I kind of felt that too. On this album, the explosive instrumentals maintain or follow some sort of rhythm, which for me make them much more digestible as they always even out or transition into some sort of calm or serenity. Even if a track grows slightly more tempestuous, the eye of the storm is never too far away. If JPEG Type Beat is the hurricane, then the next track, Grimy Waifu, is the eye of that storm. The calm continues on Grimy Waifu for an acoustic like Peggy performance, and I get my fix of synths. And by the lyrics and title and flow of this track, I would assume he's talking about a weapon, as if the weapon were his woman. In tracks like this, the instrumentals really steal the show because it's almost insane to believe that a lot of these sounds could be so textured but feel so light and don't feel too thick or too heavy or even muddy, despite the lo-fi aesthetic aesthetic a lot of them have. The track actually begins to sound like a Sonic the Hedgehog special stage theme music, and I mean the original game. And at this point in the song, I'm starting to feel like this is where impulse meets wisdom. These moments of impulse are illustrated by the glitches in the chords, but are met with the proper judgment or wisdom not to continue to overuse and devalue them by saturating the entire song with them, turning it into some kind of gimmick. PTSD comes right after the track, where if I'm to assume he was talking about a weapon and not a woman makes the most sense. I just off someone with my grimy waifu. Now I got PTSD, and it features this echoey vocal in the background that almost mirrors what a bee flying by your ear might sound like, which may cause you to momentarily be on guard. It adds to this sensation of paranoia, one that might trigger an immediate reflex. And many people who do return from serving have that knee-jerk reaction. The story here for me that connects PTSD and Grimy Waifu is one that associates the use or lifestyle that he had to live while he was on tour, having to keep his weapon or Grimy Waifu by his side in case that knee-jerk reaction was needed. And judging by how often he weaves internet culture into this album, metaphorical Grimy Waifu for the internet, for his haters, for the rappers, for the industry, the world as he sees it. Where there were schizophrenic instrumental tempests on Veteran, on My Heroes Are Cornballs, it seems to be much more planned out with smooth transitions and slight glitchiness, with a priority on consolation over intimidation. And I say consolation because of the disappointment in its definition. There's disappointment alluded to all over this entire project, and something that Peggy clearly has much experience in, and the decisions made here sonically seem to be inspired by this want to comfort or this want to console those that he feels he's going to break the bad news to, those who are still holding their idols to this extremely high, unrealistic standard, those who still don't know that their heroes are cornballs. It's almost like the album is much slower instrumentally to somewhat create these safe spaces, not nearly as harsh, not nearly as abrasive, in order to break the bad news. The album begins to feel like a parent bringing their child to the side to explain to them why they can't get the new PlayStation for Christmas. On Rap Grow Old, Peggy appears to appeal to this endless cycle entertainers go through, giving pieces of themselves to the music industry, giving pieces of themselves to these kids who worship them, but still being called sellouts for taking care of themselves. And he seems to rap from the perspective of a newborn on the end of this track, being born into the world, coming out of the womb, ready to repeat the cycle again. The title track is easily the most discombobulated, disjointed here. It doesn't seem to have any focus. You can't count on Peggy, aside from his two verses, one of which is sung in auto-tune, to give you any vocal comfortability here. Despite this track feeling like Peggy is a couch potato who's flicking through the channels not knowing what TV show he wants to watch, this track doesn't feel any less detailed than any of the acrobatics that it goes through, or any less fleshed out. There's a flickering noise-like instrumental under his initial verse, flooded with sung auto-tune, that transitions into this much less compassionate, much more violent vocal style and delivery. And then we get tracks like Prone, which is a digitally made rebellion against an unknown perpetrator. The cartoon-like violent delivery make the lyrics, despite well written, sound so ridiculous, almost as if he's created an enemy who's virtually done nothing to him as an excuse to make a punk song about turning someone into Stephen Hawking. The synths on this track are absolutely disgusting. I mean, he's coming off like a legit cornball on this track. Post-Verified Lifestyle features some of the smoothest transitions I've heard in this dude's entire discography. And on this track, he seemingly tackles what life is like after success. His first verse seems to tackle the ideas and the thought process of someone before reaching and attaining that success, and kind of also detail the comfortability that he had and still does have with a lack of success. How much more accustomed he was and is to an unsuccessful life despite being successful now. The interlude with these swelling background vocals aids in that idea even more, when the woman during the interlude has this little speech about being put on the spot and delivers a somewhat disappointing speech. Falling off before I catch a fee, hit the Mueller, let me down with ease. I mean, how disappointed, again, disappointed, were people when they found out that the Mueller report essentially did nothing to Trump? This track has a very cloudy, lo-fi, vaporwave-like aesthetic, and another thing I forgot to mention about that woman's speech was just how Peggy tried to humanize her. He's actually comforting her, telling her that she'll be okay despite having these unsatisfying lines in her speech. There shouldn't be a consequence to just being disappointing, especially in the context of this track, given how on the spot and impromptu it was for her. No one should hold you up that high in how she's likely only worried how she's supposed to be talking about something because of unrealistic pressure that people place on their own hero. Again, not realizing that they're cornballs too. Everything gets so interconnected at a certain point in this project, it all really just comes together. Thot Tactics is one of the most impressive singles on this project to me. It kind of features some Lil Uzi Vert-like vocal inflections at a certain point. It's titled Thot Tactics and is spoken in its intro as if it's from the perspective of a woman, but it's actually from the perspective of a troll who's thirsty for Peggy's attention.
I wanna rock your world, I wanna be your girl.
It's really just some guy typing and adding Peggy on Twitter or on a forum or on YouTube or on social media in general. The first line of his verse is, bruh, put the keyboard down, get the Mac out. Get the Mac out! Telling those that are so thirsty for his attention that they'd resort to thought tactics in order to get it. And he's also telling them to be more confrontational about it. Do more than at me, pussy. The remainder of his verse is literally him describing what he would do to this troll as if it were a woman that he was having sex with. Got him looking up like who they under now. I ain't underground, I'm over who you under now. These rappers that these people and these trolls and these guys keep dick riding and, you know, getting themselves and putting themselves under to give the rapper some sort of satisfaction. Yeah, he's saying I'm over them now. I'm better. Bruh, put the keyboard down, get the Mac out. That line is so hard. And Free the Frail is another beautiful track on this project that touches on his reluctance to the spotlight and how, despite his success, it hasn't changed or grown his level of confidence. His line, okay, listen. His lines. I'm getting fried, I'm on the side, I'm Kevin Fed, I play with fire, I can't retire, I need the bread. Like, describing rap like a gang you can't get out of, but the money, aka the bread, is what'll kill you if you leave? Like, I'm getting fried, I'm on the side, fries are on the side, while Kevin's first album was playing with fire, and Kevin Federline was by the side of Britney Spears, whose career was on fire at the time. Like, bro, where is the Pusha T when you need it? The idea here centers more around, like, what a mother hen or mother bird would do to her children once they're ready to leave the nest, by throwing them out of the nest and no longer worrying about it. But the twist here on this track is, he's admitting that he does worry about it. He's just accepting that there's nothing he can do about it. If it's good, then it's good. Break it down. It's out of his hands. This track is just beautiful in how it deals with insecurity and acceptance. Basic Bitch tchTearGas is easily one of my favorite tracks on this project, where he seems to weave a TLC cover over these really glitchy snares and hi-hats. Also some really gentle guitar strings in the beginning of the track that are slowed significantly around the 25-second mark. It really seems like a light and delicate track, and I love how he recontextualizes the purpose of the TLC cover song No Scrubs to fit the context of this album, as the old one could be looked at as the frustration that a woman might feel when scrubs try to approach them. In the context of this song and in the context of this album, it seems as if Peggy is using it to reference his disappointment or his lack of respect for his peers in rap. tchTearGas title may allude to how women will flock to these rappers regardless of their corniness or regardless of the cornball maneuvers or tactics that they show in the way they move in the industry. His singing is really soothing on this track as well, but nothing, and I mean nothing, will probably beat out the Carly Rae cover. I just don't think it's gonna happen.
What's your number? No, I don't wanna give you mine, and no, I don't wanna meet you nowhere, no.
Final track here, Papi I Missed You, just feels the most genuine, the least filtered, the most unapologetic, the least banter, the least sarcastic. No rapper who wants success deeply will scream on a track, target practice on an Aryan, redneck tears, woo, what a beverage. And the devotion to this rant on this track feels like a middle finger to his cornball heroes, who usually, when offered money or jump at the chance of it, or the thought of success is whispered within their ear, they tuck their tail between their legs and run to the nearest white person saying, yes, master. And I'm not saying that just because that's just only how I feel. It's also what Peggy says on this project. He says literally, biting crackers and wonder why you ain't anorexic. Like, you wonder why you're not eating, wonder why you're not finding your wave. This is why. You're jumping at the opportunity. You don't have your own mind. And the ending of this track leads us into a cloudy, distant ambience. I just love this record. I love it. It's fantastic. And I love it not just because it's artsy, not because it's different. I love it because it's honest. I love it because it feels authentic. It feels genuine, despite him walking the line and peering into the world of satire and seriousness so frequently on this project, not always being extremely clear. I love it and can respect it because it's an attempt at normalizing humanity. It's an attempt at normalizing your own ideas, despite how popular or not popular they are. It's an album that lives in reality and refuses to be one-dimensional. One that conceptually embraces the disappointment in humanity and doesn't see anything wrong with accepting it. An album that expresses itself instrumentally just as much as it does vocally. I mean, that's not even to talk about some of the best lines on this album. I mean, we got One Shot turned Steve Bannon into Steve Hawking, with white shooters like the older Mavericks. Oh, you think you up and coming? Gee, nah, up and comers really think they me. I'm Beanie Single mixed with Beatles with a dash of doom at 98 degrees. I'll be in your kid's mind getting leverage. Like, this album is JPEGMAFIA's consolation album. It's an acceptance album saying regardless of what happens or what someone does, despite how high of a place or pedestal you might hold them up to be, the way this album was marketed was just to let people know, hey, we all suck. I'm sorry he's been in the background really creepily staring at you the entire video. This is the best I can do until my vinyl gets here. I got them before they sold out too. Suck my All My Heroes Are Cornballs. That's how I feel on it. You're free to feel different. You let me know why if you do in the comments. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. And I'm out. Peace. Don't stop.